Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all. I am very pleased for this opportunity to share some perspectives on the priorities of small island development states in Latin America and the Caribbean, and most importantly, for the Caribbean. We have put the Caribbean first. That's our main purpose in ECLAC. We have said that the Caribbean has to come first. And I want to address three broad priorities for the Caribbean seeds. I have chosen these three because they are mostly externally driven, and they need, these three proposals, the support and cooperation of the international community. So I put you on notice. This is a call for action. The first one is resilience building. We have heard this week countless state testaments of seeds, vulnerability to climate change, a man-made phenomenon for their making. The devastation of Bahamas following Hurricane Dorian has been a very important example of this destructive event. And what you might not remember, however, is that Bahamas was also struck by Hurricane Irma in 2017, Matthew 2016, Joaquin in 2015. So already, Bahamas has been struck 4 years consecutive, costing to Bahamas already $816 million, all these catastrophic events. That brings me to the second priority, which is the debt overhang. The impact of external shocks has directly contributed to the high levels of indebtedness. While the situation is more acute in the Caribbean countries, we also acknowledge that other seeds in other regions have also the same problem. The problem is that with this debt overhang, the Caribbean countries have to devote almost 50% of the government revenue for the debt servicing. So you are with no fiscal space to do nothing but to pay the debt services en punto. So this is something that we have to stress. And this is connected to the middle income status of the Caribbean countries, because some of them have been graduated. Antigua and Barbuda, the same time while Barbuda was hit by Hurricane Irma, they were graduating Antigua and Barbuda. So they were graduating probably Antigua because Barbuda was in serious problems. So what do we do with upper middle countries, middle income countries that do not have access? And listen, I don't think these middle income countries from the Caribbean are asking for ODA. No. They are asking for concessional funding and also for a special treatment on trade, which is what you lose when you are graduated, not only the ODA. Which brings me to the third priority, and that is, how do we find low-cost, long-term financing for investment in climate adaptation? How do we make sure that COP25 or the next summits on climate change really focus on the issue on adaptation, and really we bring to a priority adaptation for small island development states? Because they are also under stress, at least in the Caribbean, because of the correspondent banking relationships that have been disrupted to de-risking, remittances, etc. So what do we want to suggest? And this is what ECLAC is bringing to the table. We are bringing a very concrete proposal, which is called ECLAC, is Debt for Climate Adaptation Swap Initiative. And this means very concrete. The Caribbean countries are indebted around $56.2 billion as a whole. So what we are suggesting is that that we analyze in detail the external bilateral and multilateral debt and try to see if there can be a haircut of 10% or 20% from this bilateral or multilateral, and this money could be sent to a fund that we call the Resilience Fund. We are including here a pooling of all the Caribbean countries, starting from Jamaica, by the way, who was the very first who started with these ideas. But each structure of the debt is different for each country. You have, in some cases, is more external bilateral, others is external multilateral. So anyway, but if we go into a disaggregation of the debt of the structure, and we can make a haircut, this entails, of course, a negotiation with the creditors. And who are the creditors? Well, creditors that are also committed with climate change, like the World Bank, like the IMF. So we need to sit with them in the table, with the multilateral banks or the CDB, the Caribbean Development Bank, and see what can we do to release this funding, to make this funding available For what? For a resilience fund that can be invested in projects, I would say in private-public partnerships to build resilience, to do projects of infrastructure or even reforestation to make sure that there is green projects, energy efficiency that are creating jobs. And also this type of formula can also be combined with the Green Climate Fund, that we know that the Green Climate Fund is not about only concessional, but they can also be giving funds for equity or for guarantees. So this is the type of formulas that we need to find, and also how to combine this with blue and green bonds. So this is what we're trying to bring to the table, a very concrete proposal. We are starting, of course, with 3 pilot countries, which is St. Lucia, Antigua and Barbuda, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who have expressed their full commitment to this proposal. We have a very detailed study for these 3 countries, but this has to be open to all the Caribbean countries, at least in the case of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. So, Mr. Chairman, we express our solidarity, our commitment to support the countries of the Caribbean to overcome the challenges with the mantra, Caribbean first. And today I invite you, the international community, to adapt our call with an urgent appeal. Seeds first. Thank you.